Hello, this is Sky News' royal correspondent Laura Bundock, shifting over to the presenter chair for this episode, which will probably make most of us think, how is that a year ago? I was just 3 days into a new job as royal correspondent when that note was being passed around in the House of Commons. In actual fact, I was on the other side of the Atlantic, but made a pretty swift return, along with most of the US television networks. Those early days had me covering the ceremonial processions, the lying in state, the late Queen's funeral, all these enormous moments for the monarchy. But since then, this job's been about a new king.
As the Queen herself did with such unswerving devotion, I too now solemnly pledge myself, throughout the remaining time God grants me, to uphold the constitutional principles at the heart of our nation.
Now, of course, we knew a lot about Prince Charles, which issues he cared about, which ones got him worked up. But how is that translated to King Charles? Can he still have those passions? Because, of course, he became monarch at 73, pretty late in life. So we're wondering now what we've learnt about him 1 year into his reign. With me, the broadcaster Jonathan Dimbleby, close friend of the King, and the historian and educator Sir Anthony Seldon, who's currently headmaster of Epsom College. Anthony, I'm going to start with you. You're a teacher. What would you write in the King's end of year one report?
Exceeded expectations. The fear was that Charles would try and come in all guns blazing. That he would alienate people with his enthusiasms and his boyish frame of mind. But in fact, he listened to his housemaster and his matron, and he came across as a much more rounded, balanced and diplomatic person than we expected. And as a result, his popularity amongst his peers that we expected might decline has in fact been surprisingly buoyant.
So that feels like, is that an A+, A-? Well, how would you grade it?
Well, I would say, we're tough folk. Our school, I would say that's a beta alpha.
I don't even know what that means. Jonathan, look, you're someone who's known him for a long time. How much have you seen of him this year? And what do you make of the last 12 months?
I've seen a bit of him. I've talked to him a bit. I mean, the thing that most strikes me is beforehand, everyone was warning about the downfall of the monarchy, that the monarchy should transition by a generation, that there would be a collapse of support. None of that happened. The transition was completely seamless. He knew that the role was completely different, that he wasn't any longer free to speak his mind on platforms on those issues which Anthony touched on, which are really very important to him. He knew that couldn't be the case. He wasn't in a hurry to be king as a result, like some people, for some dark reason, thought. He basically did what he did for a very long time, and after 70 years of his mother being on the throne, knew exactly what his job was and that he would fulfill it with an overwhelming sense of public duty. That's how I see it.
And Anthony, that sense of public duty, I mean, of course, he inherits the job from his mother, but he doesn't inherit everything from her, the decades of experience, the decades of respect that she had managed to earn. How's he dealing with that side of things?
It's difficult, isn't it? Because she's known every single powerful leader in the world since the Second World War, the best known female face in the world. I mean, he doesn't have any of that, but her opinions were kept very largely to herself, apart from when indiscreet prime ministers, to their shame, released or blurted out what she thought or may have thought about things, whereas he is an absolute seething bundle of feelings and thoughts. So very different, but on the other hand, doesn't have that long pedigree of contacts and reverence around the world. So he has to have sculpted his own way and found it. And I think I agree with Jonathan. I think he's been substantially successful so far, but I think the difficult times will lie ahead. And really interestingly, the polls on the support for the monarchy, the YouGov poll published this month, many people thought support for the monarchy would decline. It's remained at just above 60%. Support for the monarchy did spike just after the Queen died, but it settled down to pretty much the same level that it was in the latter years of her reign. And those people who want an elected head of state are about 25%. So we have not seen what many thoughtful, sensible people thought would happen, which would be a collapse in support for the monarchy when this beautiful, irenic, never put a foot wrong lady was replaced by somebody hot with opinions.
She was very, they're a different generation. She was very serene, very calm, slightly distant. He's not like that. He actually goes out. He doesn't mind when someone picks up his hand and gives it a kiss. He doesn't mind when people put arms around him, and people as a result do. So he's very easy in that sense. But I'd slightly disagree with Anthony on his experience over and above the fact that he was free to speak publicly and to organise through his charities a whole range of activities. I suspect, that I'd be pretty confident in saying, there is no one living today who has met more people, more heads of state, more politicians and prime ministers from around the world, let alone the range of ordinary individuals around the world, than the present king. From Nixon onwards, he saw all American presidents, had private conversations with them. In those days, when he first met, he was overwhelmed to start with at the fact that they took him seriously and wanted to talk to him seriously at the White House, wherever it might be.
But he has been outspoken, hasn't he? And there is this sense that he always knew he was going to have to rein himself in. He made it very clear in that quite moving first public address that it was a different role he was now assuming. Do you think he has made that transition from kind of outspoken, passionate person to someone who can sort of do the constitutional thing as well now?
Look at him in February with having tea with the president of the EU, Ursula von der Leyen, after the Windsor Accord. The next month, he was in Germany speaking German yeah. And creating a very good impression. And then in July, meeting President Biden. So what it shows, I think, is that many people underestimate the significance of the head of state to the position of Britain in the world. This is a very real value of the monarchy in a way that we saw at times with the Queen, but never quite so intensely as in King Charles's first year. I think that there's no other head of state like him who is unelected, like him in the world today. And I think if he is able to keep his health and his mobility and doesn't have glitches, as we perhaps threatened to see when he lost his temper over his fountain pen at the very beginning, if he just keeps his cool, doesn't overwork, has Camilla very, very, very significantly by his side, could become the most significant queen to a king since Queen Adelaide back in the 1830s, he could well become a significant monarch and not just an interlude between Elizabeth and King William.
One thing I'm interested in, Anthony, he referenced this in his first Christmas message as monarch, talking about with the cost of living crisis, the great anxiety he has, and we know that community fridges, and it's a big. He's passionate about this. He's done a lot of work. There's more to come, we're told. How does it sit, though, if we've got a king in this vastly privileged position, multiple homes, huge personal income, going on about something like the cost of living? Does it cut through? Do you think he's cutting through there?
And I think he shouldn't be put off saying these things, because there's some people who will criticize him for saying, look, you are stinking rich, mate. You don't know what you're talking about. I think it's absolutely appropriate that he does that. And I think that he's had the good judgment to rely on the team around him.
I've seen over the years people come and go. Some of them have been outstanding individuals, incidentally, and really great public servants. They are civil servants in the end. But not all of them have prospered in their relationship with the king, if I can put it like that. Believe it or not, the king is a human being who can get frustrated. He can even get cross when a fountain pen spurts all over the document he's trying to write on.
Let me mention a factor that we haven't yet spoken about, which is the head of government. So the history of the last 300 years has been a transition from power from the head of state, the monarch, to the head of government, the prime minister. But look at our prime ministers. We've had 4 in the last 5 or 6 years. They come and go. They're finding the job impossible. Indeed, the last 8 prime ministers have all, to differing extents, disappointed. And I think that has been a background that has allowed Charles to shine, because he is somebody, we know what he believes in. We might not like always what he believes in or what he says or the way he expresses it, but we know what he believes in, and it's consistent.
I very strongly believe that he should not be seen as, I think, a caretaker. He's just not a caretaker character. Apart from anything else, it's inconceivable. But I think the important thing is that, and it's beside what Anthony said, is that he touched on the sort of problems of the Prime Minister. You know, we are going through very fragmenting times, nationally, internationally. There's a lot of instability, a lot of insecurity, a lot of resentment, a lot of alienation. They're very unsteady times. And I think he in that sense has been perversely helped by instability.
But I suppose at the same time, if you look at the polls, you can see, you know, especially I think, and this is what stands out for me, the apathy. You know, republicanism will say, you know, we've had a rise, we've seen a spike in interest, and perhaps that's to be expected. And polls come and go, don't they? But it's the rising apathy and the apathy among younger people. How much of that, knowing the king, will affect him? Does it upset him? Does it keep him awake?
He doesn't follow the polls closely. Insofar as he does, he knows that the polls have, as you say, Laura, bounced around. I mean, overall, over the last 30, 40 years, in fact, longer, since polling began, really, there's always been that Republican base strongly held, perfectly respectable positions, except often finding it difficult to say how they would then elect the leader as head of state. But I think that the general atmosphere is one in which he knows that a lot of people kind of are feeling very unhappy and apathetic. He knows that people are dissatisfied, and he's very aware of it. And of course, that troubles him. Does he go to sleep at night thinking, oh my gosh, the opinion poll is doing this or that? No, it has always been the case, as in so many areas, that when people are young, they have other priorities, whether it is transgender issues, very important, whether it is the mental health, very important. But they don't focus necessarily, and social media takes over their lives. So they don't think closely about the constitutional, institutional matters, which for people like Anthony and me are really fundamental to the sustainability of any coherent democratic society.
Anthony, you've mentioned it before, a constitutional honeymoon. I would say a year on, that honeymoon for the king is over. What does he do next? What does he have to do next?
Let us just reflect back on the first year of Elizabeth from 1952 to 53, just to get some kind of relief or basis of comparison for Charles's achievement. The Queen didn't have her sister Margaret, who was behaving badly in that first year. The king has had to deal with all the negativity around Prince Andrew, and neither did she have her children. They were much too young, obviously, behaving like Harry with all the dramas and bad press around him. And that's another, I think, measure of the achievement of Charles, that he's had this extreme, very close, very senior royals behaving badly, and yet he's still managed to keep the polls up for the monarchy. I think things will get more difficult for Charles as they go forward. You know, it's going to be tough. He's going to have difficult things landing on his reign, the Commonwealth, more countries breaking away. And how does he continue to show he can continue to be vital and not have those mobility issues that began from 2015 when the Queen stopped going on significant overseas trips? How can he continue to keep his vitality? How can he keep his health up and energy? Because energy is vital. It's vital to the Charles monarchy. It's vital to any monarchy. And so there'll be challenges.
Jonathan, I'm interested because you've spoken about how much he wants harmony. And yet Anthony was talking there about the Harry and Meghan issue. How difficult has that been for him? How difficult does it continue to be for him?
It's a cross that is born, has to be borne. It is a very, very public issue, and it undoubtedly has grieved him, and undoubtedly has from time to time angered him, because no response is possible, not least to respond when his beloved Queen has been attacked in that process. But he is capable of rising above that. There are not that many families around the country and elsewhere that don't have crises of one kind or another, fallings out, divorces, miseries of one kind or another, and they are generally played out in private while people go on doing the jobs. The difference is, for him, is it's been played out horribly in public, and I think the way in which he's handled it has added to his own stature. He's not sought to demonstrate any private feelings that he might have in public. The institution will evolve as it always has done, and I suspect, given his health, he's going to be with us for a very long time.
How do you think he's feeling? Someone was telling me today how he would always walk around with a notepaper and pencil. And even on a walk, even when he's in Balmoral, anywhere in Scotland, he'd come back with pages and pages of things that had to get done, this restlessness, the impatience. Is he ever going to sit back and go, I've done all right here, I'm not doing too badly?
I can answer that. No. He's incapable of doing that. You're right about the notes. He makes notes. And if he says he's going to do something, he follows up almost immediately on it. Sometimes it can't be done because it's beyond the wit of others to achieve what he wants to happen. That's always been how he is. But that doesn't detract from the fact that he is merely an illustration of his energy and involvement. So he can ask questions. And in private, we haven't quite mentioned this. I would be surprised, and I know no more about this than anyone else. I'd be very surprised if those politicians that he sees, those weekly prime ministerial meetings, aren't affected by his own private expressions of doubt, concern, involvement, advice, and so forth. He's been around an awful lot longer than the prime minister. He's had much, much more experience. And these things count. And it'll be the same if, as it seems very likely, he's going to be succeeded by Sir Keir Starmer.
Anthony, look, a final thought from you. When you write your school reports, there's always there's the glowing bit, isn't there? And then there's always the could do better bit. Just tell me, what would the could do better bit from you look like?
At my school, Epsom College, they're all doing so brilliantly that I don't have to include that bit in the report. But I think it's sculpting his own way. The Queen has been accepted now. She's becoming more of a love figure. That was a massive thing for him, with Diana so widely loved and admired. He's come through that. She is central by his side. He might have 10 active years ahead of him. How can he make Britain a better, a kinder, and more compassionate place, a country, a more still unified, stronger in the world, and a greener a country with volunteering and schooling, just better and more rounded? We need to see more prioritization and a sense of what can I achieve.
He has, Laura, it's put crudely as 4 C's, as I understand it. Community is very important to him, locally, nationally, more broadly. culture, the best of culture, and also the cultures that different societies have, embracing those. The Commonwealth remains important. Yes, the Commonwealth is still huge, even though he is becoming the sovereign of fewer Commonwealth countries. And of course, the overwhelming issue of climate crisis. I don't see him resiling, dropping any of that. And it is and will be his focus. And, I don't know, but I suspect in the years ahead, given that he's had an extremely good first year, within the framework of the Constitution, not breaching the protocols of party neutrality, he will feel able to more and more say, these are the values which I think we all share, and I want to continue to represent those for you for as long as I have breath in my body.
It has been a seismic year, and frankly, what a year to be a royal correspondent. Thanks to Jonathan and Anthony, and to you for listening.
From the moment Camilla Parker Bowles became front page news.
I need you all the week, all the time.
Oh, God. I'll just live inside your trousers or something. It'll be much easier.
What are you, going to turn into a pair of knickers?
In a scandal that rocked the world.
You've got Prince Charles saying he wants to be a tampon inside Camilla.
Humiliating proof of her affair with Prince Charles.
I have no idea how Camilla coped with the nastiness and the relentless abuse.
But together, Camilla and Charles's love survived.
They've surmounted all of that, and they have a true love.
Her reputation repaired.
That turnaround in perceptions of her is remarkable, given just what a low base Charles and Camilla were on. Diana was calling Camilla a Rottweiler.
And now to a new role beside the new king.
This reign will depend, for its success, in no small part, on Camilla.
I'm Kay Burley, and from Sky News, this is Queen Camilla, for the Love of Charles, a new podcast charting her rollercoaster ride to becoming Queen of the Commonwealth.